Alright, Horror Hounds, and welcome to another episode of This Just In. Today we're going to be talking about a new movie on Peacock called Sick. This came out on Friday the 13th, so it's brand new for 2023. It's the first horror movie I've seen this year. This is a Kevin Williamson written movie, and it is directed by John Hyams, I think is how you say it. So, Kevin Williamson, as we all know, was the writer for Scream 1, 2, 4. We know he likes to put a little bit of kind of referential humor in it. He likes to make sure that the movie's kind of light. Still good, but there's always a lightness to the movies. They're not extremely, depressing or intense. But there are intense sequences in it. Alright, so this one is a COVID-19 slasher. The synopsis of it is about two girls who are going to be going to a cabin so that they can quarantine during the pandemic. And a bunch of stuff happens, and it's not exactly what they expected. This is going to be a full breakdown. I'll be reading from my little notes here, and we'll be going into detail. So, spoiler warning, if you want to see the movie, it's on Peacock. I believe there's a $4.99 version of Peacock you can get, where it's like a free trial. That does have commercials in it, but from my understanding, there's one commercial at the beginning of the movie, and then you watch the whole movie through with no commercials. And then you can do the $9.99 version, which you'll have no commercials in. I personally have that because Peacock has a lot of shows that I enjoy. So, without further ado, let's get talking about Sick. Alright, so it starts off where we're in a supermarket, and this is where they really kind of hit home on the COVID stuff. So he's in a supermarket, he goes to buy some toilet paper, the shelves are empty. There's no toilet paper, there's like one box of tissues left. We see him walking around with his mask on. He takes his mask down quick enough to itch his nose, and then he pulls it back up. We see arrows pointing the direction for the flow of traffic. Signs about being 6 feet apart. A girl sneezes, and everybody looks back at her like she's got the worst fucking disease in the world. So if you all remember during 2020, I know, so long ago, this was pretty much exactly what it was like for us if you went to the supermarket. You had to have a mask on. They repeatedly talked about the stupid masks. There was social distancing. You couldn't be 6 feet away from each other. You couldn't walk. Well, you had directions in which you're supposed to walk up and down aisles so that flow of traffic went, so you weren't passing by, so people could be safe. In this little scene, Tyler's getting some weird text messages from somebody about wanting to party. And they're kind of cryptic. One of them is actually a picture of them standing behind him in line, and he can't figure out who it is, so he just flips everybody off. We follow him when he goes home to his apartment. He gets out of his vehicle and walks into the apartment. He shuts the door behind him. He goes and sets some stuff down, and then he looks back at the door, and it's open. And then, when he goes over by the door to shut it again, TV turns on. And it's CNN talking about COVID. How 97% of the population is now in quarantine, but there's still 6 or 7 states that have not forced people to sit at home. So, it's kind of like a ooh thing. He turns off the TV, and you see shadow in the background, behind him you can see a shadow, in the corner of the screen. You see a shadow when he turns off the TV behind him. It comes over, attacks him. They have a nice brawl. The shootings for the scenes for the brawl, not just this one, but all of them in the movie, were really good. I had no complaints on that. I thought all of the scenes were shot well. The lighting was good. The action was fast. The cameras kind of cut at different angles all the time. But it wasn't overly jarring to where you kind of miss everything. You still see what's going on. He ends up getting stabbed in the hand. And then when he locks himself in a room, he waits a little bit, he finds something to bandage up his hand, and he grabs a baseball bat. And then he kind of slowly gets out of his room, looks in the bathroom, makes his way towards the door, which is still open. And as he's standing in the doorway to kind of peek out to see if there's somebody there, guy comes up behind him, grabs his hair, pulls his head back, and slits his throat. Boom, we got our first kill. It was bloody-ish. It's not bad. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. There was some major cliches in the beginning of this, like, I'm being stalked, but when I shut my apartment door, I don't lock it. I see it's open. I go over to investigate the open door, but I don't just leave. The TV turns on. I'm going to walk over 2 inches from the TV screen. It's kind of stuff that you see in movies, and it's one of those things where you're like, I don't think everybody would be that stupid. But you never know. You never know. So that is how the first kill starts, and then we meet our 2 main characters of the movie, which is Parker and Miri. Parker is going to be taking Miri to her parents' log cabin by the lake. She's been seeing some guy, but he hasn't called her back, and she's seeing some other guy. Miri's more like the good girl, just kind of friends with the girl who kind of seems like she likes to just have a lot of fun. So they go out to this log cabin, and the log cabin is humongous. It is more like a lodge than it is a log cabin in size. And they're sitting by the lake. Cryptic text messages for her as well. And then someone tells her, jump in, the water's fine. They get kind of freaked out, but they did also post all over Instagram and everything else that they were going to the lake. So they just chalk it up as somebody being a smartass who knows them and using a different phone number. They end up jumping in the lake. Woo! And just in case anybody's wondering, this is a slasher movie, but there is no nudity. So Kevin Williamson brings the heat again, because he did that in Scream. A good slasher movie with absolutely no nudity. Which proves you can make these movies without falling for every trope in the book. Alright, so they end up getting out, and you see him back in the house. And there's kind of like this shadow moving. You see a vehicle pull up. They get nervous, and it turns out to be DJ, which is Parker's ex-boyfriend. He meets him there. He's not wearing a mask. They're kind of pissed off at him because he's not wearing a mask, even though Parker never really wears a mask. But Miri's always wearing hers. So for her safety, I think what they're trying to say is Parker had to quarantine. Miri went with her so she wasn't alone, but Miri's going to wear this mask. DJ's going to be there. He needs to wear a mask as well for his own safety. Obvious COVID-19 protocols. It's what we all did. We all visited each other with masks on our face 6 feet away. No, we were all locked in our homes. And it was a blast. Alright, so they end up doing some drugs, and they're partying and dancing, and what might be a unique dance move, we see them kind of waving their hands like those inflatable guys when you drive by a nice car dealership or something. And at one point we see Miri just spraying disinfectant spray in the air all over the place, just having a good time dancing with that disinfectant spray bottle. They end up going to sleep. We see this person in a dark outfit and mask over his face. He's got kind of the hood on his head and the mask up to here. And he decides that he's going to take their phones. And DJ ends up waking up, reaching for his phone, can't find it. And then we get to hear a song that I haven't heard since an episode of Scrubs. And it's the song that's like, Have a Little Respect. Not the Tina Turner-ish type style song. It's more laid back than that. And it happens to be kind of a growing theme with this movie, with the Respect song. And DJ ends up pulling Parker in, and he gives Parker keys, tells her to climb down to get in his car. He's going to go get Miri. When we go into Miri's room, we see her laying there. She starts to wake up, and the killer tries stabbing her. She rolls off the bed, and DJ attacks the killer, and they're fighting back and forth. Miri ends up escaping to be out there with Parker. We get a nice back and forth battle with DJ and the killer. And overall, the fighting's good again. Like I said, the cinematography for that was fantastic. They really did a good job showing the fight. I mean, he swings this giant, I don't know if it's a moose or an elk, but with big antlers on it. Swings it at the guy and hits him in the head and knocks him down. And he goes over and does the stupid thing in people do in movies and kick them while they're down and gets stabbed directly in the thigh. A little bit more fighting goes on. He ends up getting caught up in a blanket rolling on the floor, and we just see that guy jump on him and just start stabbing him everywhere in this blanket. So we go back to the girls sitting in the vehicle waiting with the lights flashed on the doorway, and we see DJ start to come out. Got some blood all over him, but then it kind of shoots down to his feet, and you can see his feet dragging across the floor. And we see that there's a killer behind him, and he's got him on a pole, and he winds up shoving that pole straight through him, and then stabs it into the ground, and he slides down. So the girls take off, but the killer thought this through and slashed the tires. They end up crashing. They wind up getting out of the vehicle, and they end up running back into the house, thinking the house is the safest place to be as the killer comes after them. They run upstairs and hide in this attic-like thing. The killer comes up. He's trying to push open the door he starts to get to. Parker ends up hitting him, like kicking him back down the stairs. They throw a chest down, or out the window so they can get onto the roof. Not sure why they didn't just whip that, like she whipped that chest. So I don't know why she didn't just whip that chest at that guy's head while it was pinned against the door while he was pushing it. Probably would have killed him. But I'm not the one who wrote the movie. Gotta have some epic scenes of them on the rooftop. They're climbing around, stuff like that. And we end up seeing the killer break through a window at Miri just to push her enough to where she falls off the roof and crashes, laying there like she's dead. If you've seen a horror movie at this point, you know she's probably not dead. But, hey, maybe. If so, that was very uninspiring of a death. She runs to the water, and she ends up hitting the guy with an oar, pushes the raft away, and she's out on the raft in the lake. And we're following her on the raft, and this killer, I guess he can swim underwater and hold his breath for a very long time. He does come up through the raft, stabbing away at her, ends up stabbing her in the hand. She ends up jumping off, swimming back, running into the house. And at that point, the killer's still chasing after her. He gets in the house. She winds up whipping some dishes and shit at him, and she grabs this big metal thing, which looks kind of like a crock pot. And she ends up taking it and wailing him on the head a bunch of times till he's dead. She bashing his brains in, and you can see the blood flying. She pulls down the mask as if any of us knew who the fuck this guy was. Like, there's no introduction. Nothing. And as she lifts her head up and looks, there's another guy with a black hat and the same outfit and the same mask. And he's going to go after her. But then he goes over to the person on the ground, and we hear him scream. She runs out to Miri to see if Miri's alive. And Miri is alive, as we all suspected, because this is a horror movie. But she says, I just broke my leg. And Parker tells her to lay there like she's dead. There's a second killer, and he's coming. And she runs and hides. Now, as the killer's checking on Miri to see if she's actually dead, Parker gets a bright idea to kind of throw a rock. So he comes over to investigate. She takes off running. He chases after her. And this chasing kind of goes on through the woods all the way until Parker makes it to the road. And she's kind of sitting by the road waiting, and then we see him jump her on the side of the road, and they're fighting back and forth. She gets a large-sized limb, I'll say, and she hits him with it, and she hits him 2-3 times, and there's a car pulling up, so then she runs over to the car screaming, you know, help me, this guy's trying to kill me, I need the cops. And the lady won't let her in the vehicle because she doesn't have a face mask on. Well, this is COVID. We can't be having you come in here for no apparent reason. You need a mask. Do you have your mask? She says, no, I don't have a fucking mask. So then the lady goes searching in her purse and she finds a mask. She then gives the mask to Parker. Parker gets in the vehicle. and she passes out. Swerve! This woman's in on it too. So then we see the vehicle drive back to the log cabin, and they're dragging Parker into the house. They put Parker in a chair, and if you all got tested for COVID, you saw the most painful part of the entire movie. They tilted her head back and they shoved that Q-tip all the way up their nose as far as they can to swab it, and then they put it in a little tester and they close it. And now they wait. And here's where we get the big-ass reveal as to what is going on. So, turns out that Parker was real excited about a guy named Benji. Benji was someone she made out with at this party. Well, after this party, Benji got COVID and went in the hospital, and he died alone in the hospital. So, the woman who wanted her to have her face mask, but was covered in, I'm assuming, chloroform, she's Benji's mom. And the guy who's trying to kill her that's still alive is Benji's dad. And the person that she killed was Benji's older brother. So their whole family is pissed because she's the reason why their son died. Well, now two. But so she's trying to make her take responsibility for her actions, and since she's not quarantining alone, that's why it was okay for them to kill everybody around her. And they already killed Tyler because Tyler gave the COVID to Parker. But Parker got these other people infested. So, this is the whole plot of the movie, and then they see somebody's kind of using the Wi-Fi, which I don't know how you notice the fucking Wi-Fi is being used. It's hiding in a cupboard underneath shit, but sure. And then he's sent out by the mom to go look for the other girl to see if she's still alive. And in this moment, Parker's kind of like making sure the woman's keeping her eyes on her, asking her questions like, how do you think you're going to get away with this? Your fingerprints and DNA is everywhere here. And the woman talks about burning the place down because young teens do young, dumb shit. And there's fires every place in the world. Fires are common. So, during this is happening, Miri, who had the broken leg, built herself a splint with, she broke a stool, put the legs beside her leg, and she saran wrapped it. So she's gonna slowly sneak up behind this woman, grab a big, I'm guessing it's a champagne bottle, it's a big glass bottle, smashes it over the woman's head. And they end up pushing the woman out a window. Please see what happened to Miri on how window deaths work. So then they see that the guy is back, and he's pissed off because the girl, Miri, is not on the ground dead anymore. And he follows a blood trail up the stairs where we see Miri take an electric knife, cut into the bottom of his leg, and Parker runs at him, spraying disinfectant spray into his face, pushing him, and he eventually falls over the edge and onto that big head thing with antlers on it. Sorry, I should know this, but I wasn't paying enough attention in the movie to what kind of animal it was. And we see that stab right through him and everything else, and that's where he's going to die. So the girls think they're good to go now. They're going to leave the house, and they go to a shed and get inside of a vehicle to start it up, or a tractor or something. And it seems like there's no gas. So when Parker goes over to get gas can, then the mother comes flying in with an axe, stabs it into the gas can, so now there's gas everywhere. It's all over herself and stuff. And they're fighting back and forth, trying to get, like, she's trying to kill Parker. Parker's trying to, obviously, not die. And Miri, somehow a lighter falls out of the main woman's pocket, and Miri sets her on fire. And we see her run out. And she runs out into the road and runs down the road. And she falls to her death. Still burning. So when you're in school, there's like a moment where they say if you're ever on fire to stop, drop, and roll. And I'm guessing if you were in dirt, it would probably help it even more to stop the fire. But this lady didn't know that was a thing you could do, so she just ran down the road on fire, which is actually pushing more oxygen through it, which would make the fire actually get bigger. So, great on her part. And then we see the cops pull up to her burning body on the ground, and end the movie. So, this movie, it was fun. It had some tense scenes. I would say that it's obviously a smartly written movie. It is Kevin Williamson. He does a great job. For a January movie and a slasher, this was pretty good. It was not boring at all. It runs less than an hour and a half, so you're not sitting there for a while to wait for stuff to happen. There is, I believe it's only like 6 deaths in the movie, and all the deaths that the killer does, or killers, are all with a knife. And Kevin Williamson wrote Scream, which is all with a knife. It fits the story, I guess, because it's like a hunting type knife, but I feel like they could have been more inventive, but it was almost like he gave the killers the dull kills and gave the better kills to the girls, like setting the woman on fire, pushing the guy over the edge, and he falls on the horns. The guy getting his face bashed in. It was kind of like it was, propping up the heroes, the final girls. So, I would recommend people to watch this movie because it is on Peacock. A lot of people probably have Peacock. Like I said, you can do a free trial if you don't, and you can watch it. So, I would recommend it. It's a good movie. If I was rating it out of 5, I would probably give it about a 3. It's a little bit better than average. Like I said, it has some tense moments in it. If you like a home invasion movie, it's kind of like a home invasion movie slasher. I do like home invasion movies, so I did like it, but it's obviously, if it's a 3, it's not one of my favorites. There are other ones I prefer for home invasion movies. But it was a good time. I did not expect much, I'll be honest. And when I read COVID-19 movie, I was like, oh, this is going to suck ass. And they called it Sick, so I was like, oh, this is going to be like a zombie-ish type movie? The cover doesn't look like it. But overall, it was decent. It was a little bit what you would expect for January. It's not your top billing movie, but it's also not shit, so that was a good sign. Alright, if I can, have you give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, share this with anybody who might want to watch it, turn on the notification bell so you can see when my next movie review comes out. Until the next one, guys, rest in peace.